President Trump recently shortened the time frame for Russia to comply with US demands from 50 days to 10. Former Russian President Medvedev has warned President Trump that his ultimatum could lead to war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but between Russia and the United States. This is a serious escalation that is not being represented honestly at all in the Western media. Steve Quayle has a warning for everyone. He joins us today after this short word from one of our sponsors. The New World Order has openly declared war on the free people of the world, and now they're telling us to expect catastrophic cyber attacks over the next 2 years. Weather events, no power, grids down, mobile cell services out. Contact your loved ones anywhere, anytime with the satellite phone store. The Bivy is a revolutionary GPS-based device which allows you to send SMS messages via your phone even if you have no mobile or cell service. Galileo will ensure you always stay in contact with Zeee Media, other trusted information sources, and your loved ones that can update you in real time in the event of an emergency. Don't be caught out and unprepared for the unprecedented times we are living in. Stay 10 steps ahead through secure, encrypted communication. Visit sat123.com/Maria and prepare yourself and your loved ones now. Steve Quayle, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you being here.
Well, Maria, it's a delight for me to be with you because usually, you're in Australia, I'm in the US, and now we're in the same time zone. So it's very accommodating, but we have the same concerns.
Yes.
And I just literally thank you for seeing the big picture. I think what we're seeing in the United States is people literally majoring on the minors and forgetting we are at war. We have declared war, and we're talking full-scale nuclear war. You've got the what I call rhinos without spinos, and then you've got the traitors in the U.S. government, both from within and without. And I'm telling everybody, the assumption that America can go around telling that they can bomb the bleep out of this person, President Putin, Russia, they can bomb Zeee of China. That stuff has ramifications, and at no time have I ever seen the Russians show disrespect, and they wanted to be welcomed into the world community.
Yes.
But as of yesterday, Foreign Minister Lavrov said, "We have come to the conclusion the whole world is against us." Now that's a true statement.
Let's talk
Except,
about that, Steve. Before we get into it, I want to preface this. So many people were under the presumption that or I suppose many people have forgotten the risks that existed prior to November of last year. And many people were under the presumption that once President Trump was elected, that a lot of those risks would be mitigated or obliterated. But what we've actually seen is an escalation in world tensions. We've seen an escalation in the problems with the economy. We've seen an escalation of the technocratic agenda. So many things are actually steaming forward towards an Agenda 2030-esque objective, bar the green agenda, because now we need AI data centers. So I have many, many concerns, Steve, but I know that World War III is top of mind for you. So I just want to show everyone what Dmitry Medvedev said yesterday. Take a look at this. After President Trump lowered the 50-day time frame to 10, maybe 12 days, he said, Medvedev has said Trump's playing the ultimatum game with Russia, 50 days or 10. He should remember two things. Russia isn't Israel or even Iran. Each new ultimatum is a threat and a step towards war, not between Russia and Ukraine, but with his own country. Don't go down the Sleepy Joe road. So this is extremely concerning. As you said, there hasn't been disrespect issued by the Russians, but what they are doing is saying you can't just run around threatening us. This isn't a world where America calls all of the shots anymore. This is actually clear now, Steve, for a lot of people. That's how a lot of people feel. Please do go on.
well, first of all, there's nothing more important than national defense. But when you have the fifth column, you have the internal disintegration of the U.S. military. People can, claim it doesn't exist. It exists. When you have a wartime economy, which we do not have, when you have a country which USA is, We don't have any manufacturing capable of footing World War III. But the mindset in America, and I'll tell you this, I know this from inside, outside, and all different areas of people I have contact with. The U.S. military and even U.S. Congress and Senate believe Russia's bluffing. Maria, you don't want to call Russia's bluff. They're not. They're chess masters. We play, it's funny. Biden played checkers and got confused, over the color red and black. Then we have his confusion over China, and China's playing Chinese checkers, and there's more pieces moving in Chinese checkers. And then we're up against the chess master. President Putin has not initiated threats. The West started this whole thing
Yes.
about we're going to use our nuclear weapons. Let me make it clear to everybody. The United States doesn't even have the megaton nuclear weapons that Russia has. We're in the sub-megaton, like 500, 600, 1.2 kilotons, maybe 1.2 megaton, but we're up against 25 megatons. And all of our deep underground military bunkers can't withstand that multiple hits by 25 megatons. The technology of the hypersonic missiles, the United States doesn't have any hypersonic missiles. And Maria, because we've got modern education in America, where two and two no longer makes four, if someone can get to you in record time, I don't think most people understand the nuclear launch protocols in the United States. It would take 5 minutes with all authentication and coordinated I'm sorry, codes and all of the factors that are in place for the United States to launch a nuclear missile. That's gone in Russia. Russia gave their battlefield commanders, especially in tactical nuclear weapon, individual control of the batteries they control, and they're under 30 seconds to launch. Okay, now, if I'm doing my math right, 300 to 30, it's 10 times faster. So even if the United States launches, we're going to basically be uh, dissolved or will be blasted. The biggest mistake, I want to be clear, is assuming that Russia's bluffing. I do not know where Russia bluffs. The idea that I keep hearing 30,000 pound bunker busters, that's peanuts compared to things like the Tsar Bomba, which was the largest nuclear explosion. It was capable of 100 megatons, but it was only dialed to 50 megatons. In essence, they can control the megaton explosion because of the power, the airplane that couldn't get away from the blast of that fast enough. So I want everyone to understand we are at World War III. We are watching a 10-day countdown. I know this from not only what's publicly, but everybody in the background I know is saying, look, Russia knows what the Trump administration did on Iran. They said, we'll give you so many days, and then started war against them, a day or two early. Russia's now been given a 10-day ultimatum. I think people have got to understand something. Superior firepower determines the outcome of the war. Western Europe still believes in tanks, artillery, and raising an army. One tactical nuclear weapon can take out literally tens of thousands of people if they're in the immediate cluster, like let's say a military camp or an airport or a staging of the U.S. military assets. But more importantly, we've watched the Houthis blast America's top aircraft carriers and its missile cruiser, one of them. So where do we think we're going to come out on top of this? And throwing it back to you, Maria, it's that perilous. If everything I know, we're going to talk about World War III, and it's in motion. It's not, as they say in the South, fixing to happen. It's now happening. And then the other issue is the economy. All economics is warfare. And when we put the tariffs on, there's a statement by von Clausewitz, who wrote a classic book called On War, and he was a Prussian general. And he said, when goods don't cross borders, armies do. Now, with all these terrifying tariffs, And I believe it was the wrong thing to do. You don't just hammer two of the biggest nuclear powers in the world and say, take this Xi Jinping, who actually he thought he could blow up, and Vladimir Putin, and to rely on, I would say, this bravado with nothing to back it up. I'm telling you, the United States is going to have its bluff called, and we have so not tested even our silo-based nuclear missiles. Not one of them has been tested from a silo in 40 years. There's 400 to 440 silos. I don't think most Americans understand that those can all be taken out from the subs off the East Coast, West Coast, Gulf Coast, and also the Arctic. Russia rules the Arctic. They've moved portable reactors. Look, I've got to cover a lot of territory to say this. We're in no position geographically, strategically, or by military firepower. We're not the same country we were during World War II and the years following. We've been destroyed from within. We're going to be destroyed from without. And I'm telling everybody, you've got to make sure you understand the implications because this isn't just a headache that'll happen over there in Europe. And what former President Medvedev is saying, look, this isn't about fighting here. We're coming to you. Russia's policy is we are going to attack the manufacturers of the weapons, the controllers of the weapons, and the weapons crews because you can't just teach somebody overnight how to basically fire Patriot missiles. And the same thing flying the most sophisticated F-16 fighters that are set up for nuclear missiles. And it goes on and on and on.
Well,
So
you
what am I?
mentioned before the depleted stockpiles as well of weaponry. A lot of that was given, the United States has given so much to Ukraine. A lot of it was also given to Israel recently.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so, it's a really dire situation. Do you think that they're relying actually on things like drone technology, which may be far further ahead than what they're telling us? I think there's a reason for that as well. Or do you think that the leadership in the United States is very well aware of the fact that this could lead to nuclear war?
I don't believe the U.S. leadership believes it will lead to nuclear war because of the fact that they're living in a Cold War mindset. Even some of the appointees, for instance, the Cyber Command, the guy said, I'm not going to take the head. I forget his name, but he said, we're 20 years behind. When you're dealing with um, all of the issues of cyber warfare and you're dealing with the issues of gee, how do you control all your smart weapons? My answer, or excuse me, my statement is, if you got smart weapons, you better have people that are smart enough to use the smart weapons. And it's not a video game. There are no resets on World War III. And by the way, the Deagle report that myself and Alex Jones started talking about years ago, we've got to see the diminution of I'm sorry, the dissolution of about 250 million Americans by now in 2026. People need to understand that wasn't a crapshoot by some guy named John Deagle. He was a Rockefeller funded and controlled how should we say, high up in the Rockefeller. They want to destroy the population of America. And 250 million people, Maria, they don't get it. In my opinion, they don't get it. Why should anybody listen to me? Because I can back up what I'm saying, and you can't just wipe your hand and say, "Oh, that's not right." We've
Well,
got a
if
risk
I
in
can
this one.
pause you and just read out those figures, I don't have them on screen. I didn't know we would be bringing up Daigle, but I have them in Telegram for anyone that's interested. You can go back through the channel and just search up Daigle. Forecast for Australia population down for 2025, down by 15 million. Population for France down by 39 million. Population for Germany by 2025, they predicted 28 million. The forecast for the United States population in 2025 down by 100 million. United Kingdom down by 15 million. Canada down by 16 million. I mean, these are astronomical figures, Steve.
And when we're talking in terms of the end of the age, not the end of the world, we're watching the literal fulfillment, in my opinion, of the book of Revelation. Once these begin, these astronomical numbers of people dying by the tens of millions or the hundreds of millions. And I wish that people could, and look, I wish people in the United States would understand. It's not just gone in, a few million people here, a few million people there. Russia has laid out its attack policy. They will, by their own statements, be attacking all deep underground military bases, which, by the way, none of them are built for today's megatonnage. They are going to take out all America's defense industries. They're going to take out all missile silos. They'll take out all submarines. And look, somebody says, well, you're just building them up. No, I'm telling people I want not to have World War III. I've devoted my life on talk radio, now on podcasting, to try and get people to recognize what's at stake. But Maria, they just don't want to embellish. If everybody is whistling by the graveyard, they better understand those people were once alive and they will soon be not whistling by the graveyard because others will be whistling by their graves in the graveyard. It's that dire. It's not fear porn. It's not fear mongering. It's the bottom line. And the lying U.S. press are accessories to murder. We watch it in COVID-19. You and I have talked about that over the years. They will not tell people the truth. They flat out lie. And they're, in my opinion, they're the most lowly creatures in the slime pit that exist on the planet.
Yeah, I have
And
to
that,
agree. Because
they're creatures.
there's so many distractions right now, Steve. And I think, I'll just be upfront. I was really, really shocked the other day watching President Trump on the Epstein files, and he made a statement that, well, he was saying, Obama committed treason, essentially. And then he was sharing AI generated videos of Obama in handcuffs. Then he makes a statement to the press that, well, actually, it's probable that Obama won't be held accountable because he would have had presidential immunity. And immediately after making that statement, and that goes around the internet, here's President Trump saying there will be no accountability rather for Obama. Immediately after that, he shares a video of, a meme, sorry, of him and JD Vance chasing down Obama in cop cars. It's just theater, Steve. It's theater. It's quite
Yes.
offensive, actually, to my intelligence. I don't know how everyone else feels, but this is a real problem. If you say there's not going to be accountability, why then share that meme that sets the internet ablaze? And I feel like people are just as stupid, if not more stupid, than they were during COVID. Forgive me. I'm not talking to our audience here because our audience gets it, but the masses seem to have not learned a thing.
I couldn't agree with you more. Here's the thing. I call it circus destructicus, okay? That's just one of the words. When you go to a circus, you have usually where the famous Barnum and Bailey circus, a three-ring circus. They understood that you have three rings and you have multiple events taking place in the three rings. But at the end of the day, you paid basically to be entertained. And I think it's important that this is destruction. Maria, I used to know, he's dead, a very evil former CIA operative, okay? Really evil. And he said this, he said, remember, Steve, when things don't make sense, we're behind it, okay? That's what he said. Now, we're watching, in my opinion, the neuro-linguistic programming. It's just basically mind control, repetitious mainstream media talking the same story they've always talked, and no one's held them to accountability. Those who promoted it, in my opinion, they're just as guilty as the guy that pulls the trigger on a firing squad or pulls the lever on a hanging tree. What they are co-conspirators. So, Maria, why would anybody listen to them?
But
And
they
by
do.
the
They've
way, I think
started again. And it's partially because this administration has propped up Fox News. It's propped up other mainstream organizations again. Fox News, who was vehemently against Trump, at some points, we know that Murdoch and him had issues there. And now that's been propped up again. Fox News is back to sort of being a trusted source for some people. I don't really understand how they promoted the shots, for goodness sake. It's like I really feel people have forgotten a lot of the lessons that they learned during COVID. I haven't, Steve. I'm permanently, it's permanently embossed in every section of my brain what they did to us, that they convinced people to go and get injected knowing that they would die or be permanently disabled. I will never
Yep.
forget that. And not to recount what we went through, but you cannot allow yourself to forget something something like that to remember what these governments are capable of.
Well, they're genocidal, demonical, and by the demoniacal is a better way for that word to be pronounced. They are literally, in my opinion, just so everybody knows, don't blame Maria for this statement, but it's mine and I own it. People cannot understand the appetite for such evil. There's no end to it until Jesus comes back. I can tell you this because there's no way to bring an end to it. And you've got now, the distraction on the Epstein file. I could tell people stuff, and oh, who was it? Sidney Powell said the same thing. I was briefed. Nothing in writing. I have to do things so everyone's protected. But if most people understood, it wasn't that the children were sexually abused. That was bad enough. It isn't bad enough that they were not only sexually abused, but then snuffed. That means murdered. And it wasn't bad enough that they were sexually abused, murdered, and then some of them cannibalized in the most horrific ways. Okay? It's why she said it would make grown men vomit. And I actually know some grown men who they're tougher than nails, spec ops guys, tier one guys. And when they tell you how evil is, it's hard for the human mind because the human mind doesn't live generally in the spiritual realm. But when you're dealing with spiritual evil that is dominating, infiltrating, and destroying our realm, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, now if COVID-19 wasn't bad enough, now you've got the insane asylum loose wanting to spray mRNA basically genetically altered compounds on all our food,
Yeah.
all of our food.
Not just food, Steve. Just the other day, we interviewed Nick Holscher, epidemiologist, who was talking about them now injecting mRNA into pets. It was recently fast tracked and approved by USDA, and now essentially pets are shedding this transhumanist technology onto their owners, and unsuspecting people around you may see a cute dog in a park, not knowing that just yesterday he had his mRNA shot, and now you're being shedded onto. They are absolutely vehemently no, I'm not looking for that word, just hell-bent on transhumanizing us, on cyborgizing us. And that's another very huge concern that I have. And here's my theory, Steve, and you can comment on it. Just going back to the war scenario, I've often said that all these building blocks for the technocratic agenda are being fast-tracked. It feels like things have absolutely accelerated over the past 6 months because they know they're going to war and they want that infrastructure there, whether they have it deep underground or, in Antarctica. They want all that infrastructure there for later down the track when Antichrist comes to rule and he's got his all-seeing eye, big brother technocratic system set up. It's being set up now for after the war, because if you don't set it up now, it'll be very hard to achieve after the war. It's going to take a lot of rebuilding. This is my theory, Steve. I'm interested to
Well,
hear
I
your
don't think
thoughts.
it's theory. I think it's you got it nailed, okay? I don't think it's theory. I think that is the battle plan. And these people are Luciferians. What a Luciferian means is Lucifer was a cherub that assaulted God, took 1/3 of the angel. I don't believe all that stuff. Doesn't matter. You may not believe it, but every mythology of the world talks about literally the gods descending from heavens or the sky and basically going to war with humanity. The whole alien, and I don't want to get sidetracked, but I want people to understand something. What Maria just laid out is the absolute linear progression of the evil that is coming into it. And I want everyone to know something. Everybody must die to please Lucifer. And I can actually prove that statement. And I'll just give somebody a tidbit of it. And I know this. Uh, for instance, Google just launched the greatest outreach through their Willow computer trying to find parallel universes. It was a big deal because when they found them, they found something they didn't expect. They ran into spiritual entities, evil. They ran into fallen angels, evil. They ran into ancient symbols and letters and I'm sorry, symbols, letters, and signs, SIGNS, and glyphs, GLYPH. whether they're astroglyphs like the Nazca Plains, that's an astroglyph, whether they're cave drawings or cave paintings in Altamira, Spain. I'm saying all that. I started on a project, Maria, 3 years ago with the assumption that AI was going to be alien infiltrated. Alien not by the typical classified aliens, but by extra dimensional entities. And for the last 3 years, been scrubbing the world, or yeah, literally scrubbing, trying to clean up to get all these different symbols and comparing each one. We started out with 400,000. Now we're up to 600,000. And imagine if you find a new symbol no one's ever seen. This is my satellite phone, and you come up with a a body of 500,000 or 600,000, what this remote control would indicate, you have to compare this like this fast, and you can only do it through supercomputers. Well, now with quantum computers and the speed of quantum computers, we can nail it. And there's a whole procedure. So I started, it's called my Glyph Project. I started with the idea that Lucifer has always declared his desire to kill, to murder and destroy all of God's creation, whether it's the animals, whether it's the humans. I'm not saying we're animals. I'm just saying everything that God created, that Genesis and God saw that it was good. That's what he's trying to destroy. So now that we've got AI, and I call it alien infestation, alien infiltration, alien implants, there are people that are literally, and I want to make something clear. I have a team that does all this advanced computer stuff, different places in the world. But we never allow a computer that is basically being used to see what the chat GPT programs or Grok or whatever. We keep our computers segregated. And when those computers are done searching the different realms of general intelligence, they have to be cleaned. They have to have the EEPROM. They have to have all the computer stuff literally sanitized, so you're starting out with a fresh computer. It's a lot of time, a lot of money. But here's the thing. In the Glyph project, we have identified for our subscribers, this is a pitch, Lucifer's boasting at how easy it is to deceive humanity, and a couple of fallen angels have had a conversation, And look, we're interpreting this. They don't speak English, they don't speak Russian. They speak through symbols, or they can speak to the people. If you've got an American audience, they'll speak English. And there are cases on the internet. So what am I saying? What I'm saying, Lucifer's plans, bottom line, I can prove it, and I can put up, and I don't have to shut up, the fact that the plans of Lucifer to destroy every man, woman, and child, and every God created plant, tree. Lucifer is the destroyer. And so that's what's underway. And World War III must come on the scene. And that's what you just stated earlier, because they need global chaos. They need the man of peace to come on the scene, and they want to accelerate their time frame. I want people to understand World War III will be fought and won in the first 20 minutes. How can you fight a war and keep it prolonged when your capitals in Western Europe don't exist? Russia said we're going to hit them all at once. They
Did,
know they have.
I was not aware of those particular statements from Russia, Steve. I think Russia's demonstrated quite a bit of restraint thus far. So you're saying Russia is making those threats? Who's making those threats?
I don't think it's a threat. I think it's their targeting plan, their blueprint, okay, for how they intend to deal with the West. I mean, Medvedev's statement is really correct. And look, it's not the U.S., forgive me, it's not just the Europeans, NATO, almost everything in NATO is, European except us, the U.S. But how do I say this? When we violated every agreement from the Minsk agreement, and now you say I'm going to blast what BS out of President Putin or President Zeee, and you're the President of the United States, people are going to say, what happens if we strike first? I think the bully mode of politics coming from Washington will not be able to keep us from disappearing as a nation. I want to make it clear, Maria, no apologies. United States will disappear from the world scene because even at the highest levels, there's so much denial. Now, just recently, I was made aware of people, I don't know them through someone else. They are I'll say high-ranking intel individuals that headed to Argentina, headed to Paraguay, headed out. They're getting out of the Northern Hemisphere. So when you take it all together, this thing isn't de-escalating. I would ask you the question, what would it take to de-escalate it? I think we've gone past that point.
I'm very concerned about that myself, Steve. When recently, when the United States struck Iran, a lot of people were very concerned prior to that strike. A lot of people were warning that this would lead to World War III. Just look at, for example, just one small example, the repercussions that closing the Straits of Hormuz would have on China, for example, and the fact that China's not going to put up with that. What makes you think China's going to put up with that? I certainly don't want to see these things escalate, but I'm just looking at this realistically. As you said, economic warfare is warfare, and that's what's happening on top of all of the kinetic warfare threats, where we're seeing economic warfare intensifying, and unfortunately, we're really only getting the Western perception of these things. We are in the West quite insulated in our thinking. We don't really think or try to consider how the East thinks. The West has considered itself a superpower for a very, very long time. But we're in this multipolar world now. That's just the reality. And so when the people were warning about the strikes on Iran and the fact that this would escalate things even further, there was a huge demonization campaign of anyone who was anti-war at the time, from prominent conservatives, really demonizing people who were trying to say, let's not escalate this any further. US intelligence just a couple of months ago said, no, Iran's not building a nuclear program and they're nowhere near it. And now they're saying, oh no, actually they're a week away. But what happened? Just 2 months ago, they weren't. And so people were just wanting answers, and those answers weren't being given. Rather, they were being demonized for asking those questions. And whenever I see people being demonized for asking questions, I know something's not right. I've seen this pattern before. And then, people were saying, well, look, it's just done and dusted. It was over so quickly. And I said at the time, this isn't over. You've got the UK, former army chief saying, even if Russia pulls out of Ukraine, we're still going to war with Russia. You've got multiple countries talking about conscription. You've got escalating rhetoric amongst world leaders. This hasn't gone away. And just the other day, Trump said again, well, we could strike, we're going to potentially strike Iran again. Why? No one really knows why we're continuing with this rhetoric. No one really knows why there hasn't been de-escalation or serious de-escalation efforts. More weapons to Ukraine, this turning on Russia. It's all very alarming, Steve.
Well, I think one of the things about not understanding technology and not addressing the technology that's being used against us is specifically in the electromagnetic realm. We as a nation have spent trillions of dollars on our stealth aircraft design and supposedly stealth missile cruisers, only to find out that there's no longer any stealth capability because Russia developed. And look, I'm telling people this so they understand. If you think that you can just fly in with your B2s or B1s or B52s, whatever, a B-52 was never meant to be stealth, but the idea is that go in and bomb Moscow with nukes, that they're kidding themselves. And Maria, the first, what is it? The first casualty of any war is the truth. We're not being told the truth. And why would the liars, a nation of liars, be even, people would consider the truth? You know why? Because it's a panacea and it's a pacifier, okay? If you don't want to deal with the reality of nuclear war, what are you going to do? You're going to deny it. You're going to attack those who are telling you about it. You're going to say that'll never happen. That's a form of denial. And gee, I hope it doesn't happen. Well, you can hope, you can dismiss it, but you can't escape the ramifications of what that would entail. And so when we're talking today on your interview, we're talking about some of the most sinisterly evil, wicked people. And I would say entities. When I use the word entity, I've made it clear always I'm talking about someone who is either demon possessed, and yes, demons possess human beings, or and fallen angels can take on a human form, and fallen ones. Paul Apostle said even Satan or his ministers can basically make people to believe. I'm paraphrasing that they're angels of light.
Yes.
So what we're talking about is masquerade, okay? What we're talking about is elaborate hoax. Under all of the covers, the devil's the one orchestrating all of the war to kill off all the humans. And we saw it with the whole COVID. Listen, from the beginning, this is frustrating in one sense to me. It was so plain it was a bioweapon released on the West. And yet the denials, and I'm on record, uh, Fauci, Fauci, I call him Dr. Faust, soul to soul, the devil, but Fauci will go down in history as, I believe, one of the co-founders, if not the co-initiators, of the greatest mass murder in history. The greatest mass murder in history. So, this big, beautiful a new vaccine or whatever it is, I want people to understand something. All of the vaccine makers, in my opinion, are looking just to line their pockets with cash and get rid of as much useless eaters. Let's take one of the billionaires, Peter Thiel. He's talking about the word. He's using more biblical terms than most Christian pastors use.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that's responsible for the Eye of Sauron. He's the guy responsible for Palantir. And I know you probably dealt with that, but we are under a total surveillance, mind controlling, and mind controlled society. And everything we think, do, and say is in the keyboard we type today, is in the phone we pick up, which by the way, mine's disconnected, which is the hell phone, and that's why people need to absolutely. You and I have both been sponsored by the satellite phone store, but everybody getting a dart bag or a Faraday bag, you cannot just drive willy-nilly on this and drive through a crime scene and not be like the January 6 people arrested just by their cell phone geolocation. So what we are under attack, Maria. Everything that God gave us, our liberty gone, in my opinion, in this country, our freedom taken from us, our ability to freely worship, not only mocked, but legislated against. How many times has someone gone to prison in this country for sitting or standing on a sidewalk praying silently, and meanwhile the butchers kill the babies and they don't have a second thought about it. I maintain that, interestingly enough, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. If people reject Jesus Christ and the mercy he offers, then all these innocent little ones that are slaughtered in the womb, and it is slaughter, it's the Malachians, the last of the Malachians, at least in the times of Moloch, the baby was born to be sacrificed. I'm not saying that's good, but what I'm saying now, we just butcher them, and you're seeing the transhumanists going wild because they're going to use their new found discoveries to have non-sexual reproduction and create a bunch of hulls as humans. And one a scientist went so far as to say, yeah, we can raise these laboratory humans for basically food or for spare parts. It doesn't get any worse than that than, the island of Dr. Moreau. So the amount of stuff coming at us, and I get it. A lot of people get tired of prepper fatigue, but they got to realize, we all have to realize we're under attack and there's no going back.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Steve. Like I said at the outset, I'm seeing so many steps towards Agenda 2030 just intensifying. When you look at what happened, let's just talk about LA for a second. Children's Health Defense, their lawyers launched a lawsuit against LA prior to the fires, where they said that they basically can't turn it into a smart city where people are digitally surveilled and all of this other stuff, right? So then they had this plan for low income housing, obviously the build to rent, so making sure no one can ever own a home again. They're going to destroy these areas, then BlackRock's going to come in, build all these places up, or BlackRock funded companies, and then you'll be a renter for life in that area, right? Well, what did they
Correct.
do? They because that lawsuit prevented LA from ever becoming a smart city, they destroyed it. Now they're calling it LA 2.0 because the lawsuit was for LA. Are you protected in a world where threats of EMPs, solar flares, 5G, and all types of EMF are interfering with our very existence? Escape the grid with Escape Zone, bringing you the highest quality Faraday technology for ultimate preparedness. Choose when and where your devices are detectable. Faraday bags protect you from EMPs, car theft, card and device skimming, identity theft, tracking, Bluetooth, and GPS. Choose from premium mobile Faraday bags, crossbody bags, laptop bags, and even women's handbags, or opt for the optimum protection with a ballistic backpack, combining cutting-edge Faraday technology with a ballistic 3A Kevlar for the ultimate protection and preparedness. Now you can also protect from EMF with their top-notch EMF beanies and blankets, shielding you from some of the most harmful frequencies in our environment. Whatever your needs are, Escape Zone has you covered, and their range is perfect for personal use, family use, or even as a gift for someone you truly care about. Visit escapezone.com/pulse and protect you and your loved ones today. That's escapezone.com/pulse. Well, so now we have LA 2.0. It's not subject to that lawsuit and they can do what they wanted to do. This is the level of sinister that we are dealing with, the levels that these people will go to achieve their objectives, to achieve their smart city goals, their surveillance state goals, and all of the above. Meanwhile, you mentioned Palantir integrating into all facets of the American government, Social Security, IRS, absolutely everything, your health data. RFK Jr. is saying, my dream is that every American is wearing wearables. Excuse me? Appointing Casey Means, who comes out of nowhere. Someone's called her central casting. CIA central casting. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is some of the public opinion about her. Appointing Casey Means to the to the role, and then she's got levels. The conflict of interest here. She sells wearables. He's promoting wearables. It's. I don't really see the difference of what we had before just with new faces. And I say that carefully because I want to give props where props is due and be fair. But having an honest conversation with you, Steve, I am seeing the same progress towards the technocratic agenda, just with less resistance because people think our friends are in now. This is what I'm trying to say.
It's how should I say this? The never-ending promise of a better tomorrow, but every second of every day will make sure tomorrow never comes. Agenda 2030. We won't get there, in my opinion, Maria. I'm watching countdown events taking place behind the scenes, and look, Russia was just given a 10-day ultimatum. So, for the record, pretty much everything that, Agenda 2030, it just has to be implemented, but I don't believe it will be able to be implemented in the United States. I believe it's going to be so fast, so furious, it being our thermonuclear hypersonic hell moment when under 210 seconds, the major targets on the East Coast, it'll be less on the West Coast than on the Gulf Coast, probably 180 seconds, 3 minutes, and things that people once thought would last forever are gone.
Okay, well, let me pause you here, Steve, because people will say the same that they did with Iran when people were saying, this could lead to nuclear world war. We don't want to do this. And then it didn't immediately lead to that. And people said, well, see, you were just overreacting and you were being blackpilled and you don't, trust the plan or whatever nonsense they come back with. Not really understanding geopolitics and the fact that this isn't anywhere near over. But anyway, if things don't turn out the way that you're saying now, okay, we have this 10-day period and it's not going to lead to escalations. People are going to say, see, you were panicking about nothing. But this is a severe misunderstanding of the times that we are in and all of the geopolitical strings that are being pulled all across the world to make sure that this final collapse of the fiat system comes, that we have digital currency implemented worldwide, that we have digital IDs and all of it. Look at the acceleration right now. Mexico now implementing Actually, it was as a result of an agreement with the Trump administration that they would implement a full digital surveillance state, get all their citizens on digital ID and the likes, things like this, in order to manage the migration crisis. Because that's the only way we can do it. We can only do it with a full police state, right? So this is. I'm just seeing country after country now. The UK putting their Online Safety Act into law. Australia now saying children, 16-year-olds can't get on YouTube. And of course, it's all about linking your ID to your online activity. So it's all accelerating at a pace that we haven't seen before. And it's all about getting us to this point of the war and then the digitization of everything post-war, the infrastructure they're setting up now and getting that in place post-war, so that when the Antichrist comes, people need to understand this. It's all about this, so that when the Antichrist comes, we can have a system, or they can have a system rather, not we're not going to participate in it, where you can't buy or sell unless you have the mark. That's what all of this is about.
Absolutely. And look, when people say, I'm saying that Russia made the statement that they do not trust the United States. And then Medvedev said, basically 50 days, 10 days, whatever time frame you put on us, we're ready to react. So what I'm saying, to put into perspective, the United States and Israel gave Iran a certain amount of time. When it approached that time, they launched ahead of time. That's a fact. No one was saying that it would lead to World War. I'm sorry. No one was saying, and I wasn't saying that it would lead to a nuclear war, but I'm saying Russia has made it clear with all of their missile development that they intend to use their missiles, and the West says, oh, they won't use them. And Maria, the thing that's problematic is the United States has no civil defense. Some European nations do, obviously Sweden and Norway, Switzerland being the poster child. Now Germany's trying to build bunkers and bomb shelters at record pace. And if you could win the nuclear war by protecting almost all of your population and industry, I just am appalled at I saw one New York poster that basically showed civil defense in case of a nuclear war. You probably saw it too. There was some lady, or maybe a xenomorph, you couldn't tell if they're a man or a woman, and they're sitting in the corner of a parking garage, okay? Well, what happens when you want to eat? What happens when you need to use the restroom facilities? And what happens when there's 100 people? What happens when there's 1,000 people doing that? And they come out, and guess what? There's nothing to eat. Guess what? There's no electricity. Here's the deal. The Antichrist takes the place of Jesus Christ. Anti, most people think, is against Jesus,
In
but
place of.
anti means in place of Jesus.
Mm.
So he's going to come on the scene as a man of peace. So we've got Deagle. So all we can do is give a preponderance of evidence. And the preponderance of evidence is, by all the statements I mean, when Medvedev made his statement yesterday, I actually agreed with him. I agreed with him because they're not crazy. And what I've noticed about the British press, even the London Daily Fail, they cannot even say anything nice about Russians, about Putin. Look, Putin isn't out there threatening everybody. He just set up the BRICS nation, Brazil, Russia, India, Iran, China, South Africa, and now it's got 46 nations. And they're saying, what do we want to deal with America for anymore? Because we don't want to take any more of their dollars. And they don't. The whole world will be, how should I say this, making a statement at some point, I don't know when, that we won't take your dollars anymore. And Bank of Japan will just segue now into the economy.
Sure.
The Bank of Japan is failing. Deutsche Bank is failing. They have 147 trillion in derivatives, but they have another 20 trillion. That's 167 trillion dollars in derivatives. Now we have the Bank of Japan basically being bankrupt. We have the situation with the yen carry trade when Japan would give money to people at no interest, expecting it to be paid back at a certain time. The point I'm trying to make in this is that we're watching now nations saying we don't want your dollar. They're giving you the vampire across to basically say no, no, you can't do this. So what I'm saying to everyone is that timing is in God's hands, but the season of these events are happening right before our eyes. And I think it's critical that people understand the financial realm can go down in a single click. I just hit one on my keyboard, like the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
President Trump cannot dictate, he can appoint, but he cannot dictate to Jerome Powell. The Federal Reserve. How many people do you think know this, Maria? That there's nothing federal about it. It's the private
Yeah.
banks
It's
that
a,
control. Yeah, and people say, well, they can't do that. Those are government employees that can be fired. I
yeah.
said, sir,
No.
or yeah, you can't. I mean, it's insanity. So
But but
now,
but 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 we still maintain the charade that the
yes,
Federal Reserve is somehow federal. That's my
right?
problem.
Yeah. Well, can I tell you something? Insanity always underpins itself with insane arguments that demonstrate they are insane.
Yeah.
And so we can't pay back $37 trillion. There's three sets of books I've been told in the United States. I can count to three. One, I won't do that. Two, three, okay? And the three sets of books are the ones they admit to. 37 trillion, then the big beautiful bill will add another, what, 4 trillion. And Elon Musk told everybody the truth. This is unsustainable. But then that's only book set one. Behind that is book set two. A lot of people fail to recognize that a lot of the intelligence agencies sponsored some of the highest tech firms in the world, from Amazon to you name it. And everybody that was in computer was funded by the CIA when they announced openly they're going to take positions in different companies. Well, that should have been given a heads up to everybody. Those guys won't lose money. So there's money out there, Maria, but it's not in the hands of U.S. government. Government bonds in Japan, they're being sold at whatever they can get out of them, U.S. Treasury debt. The Treasury last week, actually the Federal Reserve, but the Treasury went along with it, said we are not going to allow Japan to liquidate any of their bonds. The 30-year bonds are the, if you will, the bulwark or the foundation of all international investments. And they're selling off at a 90% discount. And this is something when that's where your hyperinflation comes from. And I believe the president made a statement, well, we don't have inflation. Everything is beautiful. Well, that's not true. We do have inflation. Look at what we're seeing. We're seeing bracket creep taking the American homeowner or the American dispossessed worker. They can't afford to buy new cars. They can't afford the food. And so I think what's critical is one of the points that I brought up in my book, Terminated, the end of the human race is here. And the end of the human race, what do? Oh, you get a whole army of robots. They're doing everything. But now robots are transcending their design parameters. And it's one thing to have artificial general intelligence, but it's another thing to have artificial super intelligence. And ladies and gentlemen, that there's so much to consider, but the basic is everybody that brushes their teeth tonight or today or the morning after meal, whenever, look in the mirror and say this: in those, I won't use that word, but in those diabolically wicked men and women, this mirror images disappear. They want no humans left alive. I can't make it any more plain. I won't, what do you call, ring around the rosy. We're pocket full of posy. We are not being realistic in what is coming against us because, again, we've got so many people unemployed, and then we give migrants, you saw it, immigrants, four-star hotels. I mean, literally spending tens of billions. Look at Gavin Gruesome, you know.
Well, what it is, Steve, is completely stripping the wealth from the working class as they
Yes.
replace them with AI, as they make housing more and more unaffordable. Just speaking to Tiffany Cianci later this week about this, and everyone should tune into that, about how President Trump essentially just enabled private equity to come in and allow companies to invest people's 401ks into private equity. It's essentially a bailout for private equity that is responsible for destroying businesses, destroying private ownership of homes. This is, essentially just enriching, empowering BlackRock even more. Um,
Right.
and State Street and Vanguard. So, I mean, it is, when I said, I don't want to oversimplify it. When I said at the start, I'm seeing an acceleration towards Agenda 2030, it's just sort of the marker that everyone has in their heads, everything that Agenda 2030 encompasses. But really what it is the beast system, the system where you are enslaved through digital currency to a system where everything you do is tracked and traced. Australia just announced, the Reserve Bank there said, we're introducing a currency that expires. So not only is a digital currency where they can dictate to you what you can do with that money, but it also expires by a certain point. So you have a deadline as to when you can spend your money on what the government allows you to spend it on. Just think about the utter control. And meanwhile, all these employees are being replaced by AI. It's happening. It just happened again with CBA, a huge bank over there, the biggest bank over there. And the same thing is happening here. It's happening in every single country. So this controlled demolition of the working class, the ability to work. What did Elon Musk say? He said, within 5 to 10 years, billions of people will be out of jobs. They won't have any meaning in life. They won't have purpose in life. Well, that's exactly what Yuval Noah Harari said when he said, we're just going to drug them and give them video games to distract them from the fact that they're now useless. These steps are actively still in progress, just with a different face and name. And so what I want to ask you, Steve, is what should people be doing? Because I'm more motivated now to be self-sufficient than I ever was. I mean, I've always had that in me, but I'm talking about making sure that your food doesn't come from people that you have to depend on, making sure that your energy doesn't come from people that you have to depend on, having alternative communications, having protections against EMPs and things like this, because we just don't know. This is when President Trump was about to launch his strikes on Iran, Fox News was saying millions of people rather, across America are preparing for EMPs. That's not a coincidence that they're dropping those seeds in there for you. So talk to us about what people need to be doing, Steve, over these next few weeks and months, even over the next 2 weeks. How should we be preparing?
Well, first of all, you don't need to yield to hopelessness or despair. That's the number one. Number two, don't let fear freeze you in your tracks. What Maria was just talking about, your number one asset isn't your checking account, it's what you have in your fridge and your freezer. Because Maria, obviously, the EcoFlow systems that the satellite phone store sells. And look, I believe in them. I have three of the biggest units right around. I'm at my office right around from me. I have them at my house too. And why we have that, we're backing up. I could care less about my computers. I want to make sure that the food that I have in my refrigerator and freezer stays good for as long as I can run the freezer or the refrigerator on whatever power units I have. And the bigger, the longer you can run it.
Yeah.
Here, I want people to understand. Go look at most people have a steak they bought maybe 6 months ago. Not all. I'm just using this as an example. Go look at what you paid for it. Look at what it costs in the store
Yeah.
now. So if you have a 30% rise in prices, that means it's like having $100,000 in the bank, and now you can only buy $70,000 worth of stuff. And now it's no longer a question of price, it's a question of availability. And when it's a question of availability, then those who produce it, barter it or trade food, they can name their price. We saw the egg fiasco. We've seen the milk fiasco. I've been warning people, Maria, and this is critical. Food will be your life assurance. Well, and I deal with a lot of what I call false faith people. Well, I'm just going to trust God. Look, I have had in the past, requests from veterans. I had to stop the program because the donations pretty much ceased. But I mean, there's so many needs out there, and only God can meet the needs. So the number one thing I tell people is all this stuff is only going to build and build and build. The tension is going to become worse and worse and worse. The availability of products is going to become less and less and less. Oh, really? 80% of all medicine comes from China or came from China? Oh, really? All medical, pretty much surgical tubing, IV, everything that we use in America, we destroyed our own country when we passed everything off to China.
Well, and
And
Steve, let me just interject here because Mike Adams was talking about this recently. He was saying he's an American business that has donated so much to the disaster in North Carolina, the floods here in Kerrville. He's trying to expand his business and continue growing as a small American business. And he's tried to buy a machine that's only available in Italy. It's not manufactured here in the United States. The machine was going to cost him $1 million. Now, because of tariffs, it's 1.3 million. It's now outside of his ability to purchase it. So he can't buy this machine to expand his American business. That's one person. How many other people are we talking about that are in that position now who cannot get the things that are going to enable this country to function, that are supposed to encourage this country to build so that we return manufacturing here, so that we return all of these things here that we're currently dependent on for China for? And mind you, as world tensions continue to escalate, which they are at record speed, are people really going to be building that quickly to keep up with the pace of these eroding relations? I don't think so, especially when the cost of things is so high. So this is what I'm saying. People really have to face reality now, Steve, and I'm certainly of that opinion as well. I thought we'll give it some time, we'll see how things go, but we also have to be realists and say, okay, we need to really be serious about being self-sufficient here.
I think self-sufficient, I even say God-sufficient
Right.
because, I'm telling people that as one of the founders of the prep movement and what you'd call it survival and stuff, I don't know, 40, 50 years, I'm old enough to make that claim now. The bottom line is that it's life assurance. If you look, Maria, at life insurance, something bad has to happen. Health insurance, something bad has to happen. But when you are responsible for your family, and I've been quoting this scripture, the Bible teaches any man that doesn't provide for the wherewithal of his family is worse than an infidel. An infidel is a dog. And we're responsible for our families. We're responsible to be able to feed our children. And what's happening, even with CV-19, from the beginning, I said this is a planned destruction of human reproduction to destroy humanity. Back to what we can do. You need to have a backup form of power. You won't be able to buy gasoline, or you might buy it on the black market, but solar is probably your only bet. You need to understand you won't be running your washer. And I'm not talking about whole house solar. That takes a huge amount of investment,
No,
money,
just the
blah, blah.
necessities, making sure your food doesn't rot.
Yes. Your food not
That's
rotting?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
What?
that's 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 a key here. You mentioned the satellite phone store. Yes, we are very, very supportive of the satellite phone store. I asked recently, Steve, about, I asked people, if you haven't been preparing, if C19 wasn't the thing that sparked you starting to be a prepper, if you want to use that word, what has held you back? And some people said to me, well, it's money. So I said, okay, I understand that. I actually personally was in a position at one point where I was thinking, okay, I need to do this frugally, but I need to prepare for me and my family. So what did I do? Well, I bought my own Mylar bags. I bought my own oxygen absorbers. And then I bought, rice so you can get it on special, flour, things like this, and did it myself. And I sealed it all with a $30 hair straightener and then put it into airtight containers. There are things that you can do to be more frugal in your approach. There are, economical things that you can do. There are sometimes canned foods that are on special. They last a very long time. Things like this are important. But if you do have the means, or you can stretch for those means, it's important to get prepared with some essentials. Someone recently asked me, what are some of those essentials? I said, well, first and foremost, you need a device to communicate with loved ones. That needs to be in a Faraday bag. So that's one thing. You're talking about power. We'll just bring up the satellite phone store. They have the EcoFlow Delta 2 portable power station. This is one that you can save on right now. Great power here for home appliances. There are a number of different things like Faraday bags, communication devices, satellite phones. I know of entire communities that are preparing, Steve, and have been for some time, and they didn't stop because they're wise with satellite communications within their networks, and they all know to contact one another, and they have a plan for what to do if unexpected things happen. the threat of an EMP is a very real possibility. I'm telling you, if Fox News is telling you about EMPs, you can expect the threat of an EMP is at your door. Let me just be really upfront with everyone. So these things are things that people should be preparing for right now: food, water, backup power, communications. What else do you want to add to that, Steve?
Well, I think everybody needs a handheld filter and a purifier,
Yeah.
Katadyn. Some people pronounce it Katadyn, Katadyn, pure. Sawyer's makes water filters because you have to recognize, I have to recognize that we can skip a meal, but we can't skip a day without water. We're largely water beings. And I think it's important enough, Maria, to say this. I think that the number one thing that everybody's missing out on is the necessity to have a shortwave radio. A shortwave radio. Listen, America can disappear, and in my opinion, it will. I know that really makes people mad. This is the only nation in the world that is contemporary that has shaken its fist at the living God. And to quote, what was it, Schiff or one of the Democrats, Nadler, God has no place on our platform. The Democrats have set themselves at war. And they basically are just fulfilling the second psalm, I think. The kings of the earth set themselves against the Lord and his anointed Jesus, and say, we will not have Jesus rule over us.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that the amount of hatred, you don't see the word love anymore. You see lust, you see all the manifestations of the ugliness of men and women, and with a lot of demonic help. But you need a shortwave radio. They're $200, okay? And I'm looking at mine. I have one on my table someplace.
You can
My
get them
cable's
with
on.
solar, and some of them even have a crank for power. You can
Yeah,
get
yeah,
them.
and
You can
and
even get them cheaper than that, Steve. I've seen
yeah,
them even cheaper.
Amazon.
Yeah,
Amazon.
yeah,
And look at the ratings, ladies and gentlemen. Go for the ones that are 4.5 or 5 stars.
yeah.
Again, Maria, you're correct, but I used to sell them all. I used to sell them large and small. The handheld crank radios, you know what the first thing that happens? The crank breaks. And then you try and fix, no, true.
Yeah.
And there's some good brands, Sangean, Sangean, Grundig, Grundig. I mean, there's a lot of different brands. And again, just go on Amazon, type in shortwave radio. The other thing that's really critical, and I want to share this. I mean, kudos to the escape zone people. This is a giant Faraday bag. I don't know if people can see it, but they made two sizes. And Maria, you can put everything in here that's electronic, or you can put even the power units in here because it's going to be important. Once you hear, and I want to give people a real heads up, once you hear that the Ukraine and the major cities are gone, you better know that it's game on. So you will have to learn how to acquire information. I've tried to set up a shortwave communications network because people can use repeaters. By the way,
Yeah.
I'm not a ham, a shortwave radio operator, but I can listen in.
Hmm.
And people must recognize, I mean, it's for their sake. So two or three people go together, buy $100 short, buy whatever you can get because you'll need to stay in contact. Obviously, we have the internet. I travel, and by the way, the satellite phone store has got some deals on it, but I have a portable Starlink. It goes on my truck. I drive a pickup, and I have a bed, what do you call it, cover on it. I can just go any place, put my device, my satellite receiver, transmitter, and I just run the cord into my truck and I can sit there on my cell phone and I can go on Proton. And if they blow the snot out of the US ISPs, international or in, yeah, what service provider, internet service providers, I'm not stuck depending on USA and all of the internet nodes. I can go proton to proton. If I want to contact you, and in Texas, all I got to do is have a Proton email account, and you have a Proton email account. I go to you through Proton. I don't go trying to for Gmail or Xmail or snail mail or whatever. I can contact you direct, and so there are reasons why this is going to be important because Maria's got the pulse, and she does, and she knows what's going on. But you, people that aren't in our field. And by the way, all of us who are considered alt news, crazy, which conspiracy theory that they used to label us with has not come to pass
Yeah.
as being true, you
Yeah.
know? And so, I mean, I'm telling you this, if you listen to public opinion, you will die, you will die, you will die. If you listen to common sense, oh, common sense isn't common anymore. People already are banning the ability to communicate face to face as you and I are through technology. And they're going to chat GPT. They're falling in love with individual entities.
Yeah,
And
it's insane, Steve. It's
it's
insane.
insane, but
Uh,
there is no level of insanity. So what can people do? Stay off, and I'm saying is stay off the AI programs.
100%.
Stay off them. Get off all online banking. Well, it's convenient. Well, I'll tell you what, it's a lot less convenient if you can't access your money.
Right.
Do not do online banking, especially with the top 12 banks in the United States. They're screwing with their people's deposits. And I don't think really this is really critical. Anybody who has a deposit in a bank, checking savings, those funds can be absconded with under a banking law, and you'll be given worthless stock you can't sell, you
Yeah,
know. And that
Steve,
was,
I'm sorry because we've run out of
I'm seeing
time
the
and I have
time.
to run. But I just want to echo what you said because these are things that you have been saying for years. I've been saying them for years now too. Digits on your bank manager's screen, not something you can trust. The existing communication systems, not something that you can trust. The supermarkets always having food on the shelves, not something you can trust. The bottom line here is, and what I hope that we've conveyed here is that this is a wake up call for everyone. We are absolutely in very dire times. Those dire times will continue to escalate, and we have to be ready for absolutely any situation. That is what we need to be doing. Go on YouTube, have a look at some ideas of how to do that more economically if that is one of your concerns. If you have the means, get prepared now and stay prepared. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have said, I wasn't prepared. I am more now, and I feel less fear about the future that's coming because I'm prepared. And that's what we're trying to do here. Steve Quayle, you can visit his website at stevequayle.com. That's stevequayle.com. Any other platforms you want to mention, Steve, before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the most important wrap up is a place that we all need to have as a startup. I know a lot of really bad stuff. The thing that keeps me in perfect peace, Maria, and will keep everyone, is a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Look, Jesus is the one who tells us what's going to happen. Matthew 24, Luke 21. The book of Revelation is a revelation of Jesus, and he's able, the promise of God, he's able to keep in perfect peace those who put their trust in him. That has been my motto since I started whenever I started newsletters, radio, blah, blah, blah. The deal is we're now at the time where those of us who are talking about this decades ago, there's no more time to mock and squawk. It's now time to act and walk. Walk it out. And the last thing everybody wants to do, and I'll share this too, do not go to those who you know make fun of you, break that relationship. They will betray you. And Maria, I say this all the time. You cannot afford to trust people who are not trustworthy. So Jesus is, trust. I know the scripture. I quote it to myself every day. Trust the Lord with all my heart, the Lord Jesus Christ, and lean not unto my own understanding. Who can make sense of this? But Jesus can. And Jesus, the last thing I'll say is the word of God, the promise is Jesus said, all who come to me will I in no wise cast aside. And I can tell you, he is every bit as loving and kind, but he's also the Son of God, and he told us what's going to happen, and it's happening. So, ladies and gentlemen, please take what we're talking about today to heart and ask Lord. And I tell people this too. If you don't believe in Jesus, you're an agnostic, you're an atheist. If you'll pray this prayer, God, if you're real, reveal yourself to me out of an honest heart, not out of a mocking, snickering,
100%.
attitude. Yeah, and so that's what I leave everybody with, Marie, because at some point I'm hasta mañana, I'm out of here, meaning I'm going to be with the Lord. And so is everybody else. But those who don't know Jesus, their outcome isn't as known as the word of the Lord, and that is where he is, we may be also. God bless you. I'm so glad that you're in Texas. It makes my heart happy. It really does.
Thank you so much, Steve. And thank you for your time today and those closing words. Absolutely the most important thing for everyone to remember. I'm sure we'll speak again soon.
Thank you.
Well, Starlink had a recent worldwide outage. Everybody heard about it. But this is a different grid to the Iridium satellite network. That's Starlink's own network there. With the Iridium network being the most reliable and having the most coverage worldwide, true communication insurance is imperative. The satellite phone store has a wide range of satellite communication devices and accessories. You can get the Immersat phones, Iridium phones, bulletproof backpacks, Faraday bags, and more. For a limited time, get the reliable Immersat Phone 2 paired with a Faraday ballistic backpack designed for everyday security and built for off-grid communication when cellular networks aren't an option. Stay protected with digital signal shielding and ballistic resistance in one smart bundle. That's just $80 per month on a 15-month agreement, and get your free ballistic bulletproof backpack included, exclusive for Zeee Media viewers. Visit sat123.com/Maria today and use promo code Maria to claim your free ballistic backpack with your satellite phone. Again, that link is sat123.com/Maria. That link is in the description below.